Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. It's a playoff edition, everybody, preparing now for the NFL Wild Card Weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles will take on the Green Bay Packers at 4:30 on Sunday, John. I think a favorable time for this team. How you doing on this Tuesday edition, Johnny Mac?
Doing well. Yeah, finally the playoffs are here. Things ramp up. It's like NCAA tournament football, one and done. So everything on the line every week. And that makes for a compelling product typically. Should be a good game. I think the highest profile game of the weekend, to be honest.
Yep, no doubt about it. It's going to be a good game this weekend. Packers come down with some bad injury news, John, yesterday. Kind of what we suspected from the Sunday game, but Christian Watson did. It is feared that he tore his ACL, so he will not be in this game. John, I think that's a big loss for this team. He's their deep threat. He's the guy that spreads the field for them. They're going to have to play a different style of offense without Christian Watson in this game.
Well, it's definitely a deep threat, not a volume guy, and it's had significant injuries. Now, they're used to playing without him. You never want to see somebody go down with a torn ACL, and it's probably worse than that. There's probably additional damage as well. So difficult injury, especially for a guy who averages over 21 yards a catch. So he can run past anybody. But he's only got 29 catches on the season. He's not a big volume part of their offense.
Oh, is that all he has? 29 catches?
Yeah, he's not a big volume part of their offense. The guys who, the Jaden Reed is their best receiver. Although I expected him to take a big step forward this year as far as being one of the top receivers in football. He didn't really do that, but he's a playmaking safety. Then we'll see a playmaking wide receiver, but then we'll see, they're very deep at the position. Even if you get down to Bo Melton, it's a guy who can make plays. So, but yeah, Watson is a threat, no doubt about it when he's out there. But he's not a volume guy. So I think people who don't understand that may have overblown it, but you never want to lose any player who's a part of your regular rotation, and he certainly is.
John, a necessary evil that we have to check off the box for the people checking in today, for people looking to be updated on the playoff game. John, there's fear in the air on Jalen Hurts. Please clarify that he will be okay. I will say this, John. It is a little long for it to be intentional. I know he can't get out of the protocol until they practice, but you talked about last week them potentially manipulating a little bit. It feels a little long to me to want to do this intentionally or at least manipulate it this long. Almost 3 weeks in the protocol before a playoff game doesn't seem like something an organization would want. Do you think it was by necessity or manipulation? I'm with you in that I'm very positive he's going to play the game, but what do you think about the time on the protocol? It has been a bit.
No, I think it's complete manipulation. I think if the Eagles did not beat the Cowboys, he would have played, but he didn't have to, obviously. So it's situation. He wasn't going to get through the protocol for the Cowboys game. So, if you lose that game and you still have to clinch the NFC East, it would have been very similar to 2022. He would have came back. They won the game, obviously. Anyway, but that would have happened. And because they clinched everything, then they could say, all right, we're just going to rest him. And Nick, for the first time, said, we basically created our own bye week. We didn't get it. It's disappointing, but that's the term we used for the first time yesterday. We created our own bye week by being able to beat the Cowboys, locked in to number 2. Now they hope to have the ability to go to the number 1, but when that didn't shake out the way they wanted, they just kicked it down the road another week. So, look, I'm not a neurologist. I suppose there's a 1% chance it's legitimate, I would not panic until Wednesday or Thursday, depending on if Wednesday's a walkthrough. Right now, it's not scheduled to be, but the Eagles have moved that a number of times and shifted to a walkthrough. So you'll get an estimate at the bare minimum. You'll get an estimated injury report on Wednesday. If they're actually practicing on Wednesday, which is currently scheduled, you'll get a real injury report. And if he's not out there, feel free, panic. I'm going to say 99% he's out there.
Well, would you agree if he's not out there Wednesday, it is time to panic? That would be well past manipulation.
If it's a walkthrough, no. If it's real practice, yes. That's what I said. If it's a walkthrough, no. Then you kick it back a day. If it's real practice, which it's currently scheduled to be, yes. But he's going to be out there. He's going to be out there.
Yeah, looking forward to getting those updates so everybody can relax. So, John, what do you think about the Russ situation and the Russ conversation? I mean, I know you said you don't put much stock into it a couple of days ago here on Birds 365, but is that lingering at all for you? Obviously, I think this game's going to come down to what quarterback plays better, and at least in my opinion. Both have good rushing games, both have solid defenses, both have good interior play, both are good on the lines and stuff in the trenches. So I think it comes down to Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. Who plays better? Who elevates their offense more? And I'm not concerned about it, but it's definitely something I'm looking out for. Jalen Hurts coming into this game rusty. What say you?
No, I do not like when people boil things down to quarterback versus quarterback. If that were the case, the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. There are a lot of other people that contribute on the field. What a quarterback can do is lose a game for you by playing poorly. You saw that on Sunday night. They can lose a game for you. They need help to win a game. And that's everybody from Patrick Mahomes on down. And obviously, the better you are, the greater margin of error you give your particular team. So, one, I'm never going to boil down anything to quarterback versus quarterback. As far as the Russ point, I mean, you saw it with Dallas Goedert. He's been out for a month. Did he look rusty? Maybe a little bit, but he got over it pretty quickly.
Isn't that part of the reason they wanted to get him out there? Goddard.
Well, they wanted to get him some work, and he got it. That's what I'm saying. So if Jalen Hurts is rusty, it'll be for half a quarter, maybe a quarter, and then you get into the flow of the game. Yeah. And the thought process has been, this has been a slow starting team anyway.
Yeah, it has.
Now you don't want to be, but I think that has more to do with how they approach the game and the game plan. Similar to Green Bay, I said those two teams are very. They have a commonality in that standpoint, which is strange to me because they have so many offensive-minded people. Like Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore and Matt LaFleur know you have to get your quarterback in a rhythm. I've said this since, a couple of weeks I've been saying this. They all know this. So why aren't they doing it? It's bizarre to me. It really is. So probably the unintended consequence of having really good running backs for both teams. And again, unintended consequence means unintended consequence. Something happens, something else happens. And I think you can look at both of these teams and say, when to use the Eagles example, when Saquon's not out there and they're playing with Tanner McKee, they go right to trying to get him in a rhythm.
Right.
It's bizarre.
I don't know why they don't do that for Jalen Hurts.
I don't know either. They did it in one game.
It's like Kellen Moore needing to run makes him forget how to be an offensive coordinator at times. Like, what the hell, dude? It's common knowledge.
Well, I think it's, when you're that successful, you say, all right, we're going to lean back on this, and then it has an impact on other things.
Right.
So
talk to me about Jordan Love, John. Where are you on him? I mean, he's one of those quarterbacks that's kind of tough to gauge. At times, you see how talented he is, and then other times he's just a streaky player. He's not great all the time, but I will say he does show flashes. What do you think of him coming into this matchup, and how do you think the Eagles are going to try and prepare to defend him? By the way, a little weird coming off that elbow injury. They kind of got caught in a lie. Not a lie, but the coach after the game said, "Oh, Jordan Love could have came back into the game," and then they spoke to Jordan, and he's like, "Yeah, it still was weird all through the end of the game. Like I never improved the feeling in my elbow. I'm not saying he couldn't have come back in, but certainly something was lingering there. I'm not sure if it was just a funny bone, but how do you assess Jordan Love coming into this game?"
Yeah, I don't know what legitimately don't know what they were trying to accomplish in that game. The Packers in Week 18. It's like I can't imagine you'd be trying to manipulating to play the Eagles. So, and ultimately it didn't even matter because Washington came back to win. But
Yeah, right.
I don't understand what they were trying to do, to be honest. But I'm not the biggest Matt LaFleur fan in the world, so I'm not sure he knows what they were trying to do. But yeah, I think streaky is a good word. Very streaky player. And when he gets hot, hold your head. And yeah, I think that's a good word to describe him. And there's been so many times this year when they've fallen behind and they come back because he gets in a rhythm. So I don't know if if I'm an Eagles fan, my biggest fear this week is Matt LaFleur wakes up and says, "You know what? Let's try to get him in the rhythm right away."
Right.
But that hasn't been the case. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles jump out to the 26 lead, 23 lead, and then here come the Packers. Wouldn't surprise me if the game goes like that even a little bit, because that's how they played this season.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do. John, what do you think about that injury with Jordan? You think he's good? I thought that was a weird injury, where you like almost lose feeling in your throwing hand. I don't know if it was the funny bone or if we heard anything more about that. I didn't see it, but what do you think about that injury for Jordan Love?
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows, obviously, for the same reason as you see with injuries here. You know, I always point to Dr. Chow, who's only doing things video. He called it a funny bone injury. We've all had the funny bone hit. It is a weird feeling, but certainly wouldn't be an issue a week later. So if that's what it is, he's going to be fine. If it's something else, which it could be, then you might have a big problem. So, you know, it's part of the. I will say this: going into this game with everybody talking about Jalen Hurts and the concussion protocol,
Right.
if it shakes out the way I think it's going to shake out, it shouldn't be a concern at all. In this case, overall, much healthier than the Packers. So that's a positive as well. And if they do have to play Malik Willis, then they're completely one dimensional. And that would be probably an easy time of it for the Eagles.
Yeah, we'll see. What's the approach to defending Jordan Love, John? I think you mentioned yesterday zone is the right defense for it, but just knocking him off his game. What when you look at him as a player and you think about this Eagles defense and some of their strengths, who are the key defenders you want to see in this game have a big game in order for the Eagles to get the win in this game?
Well, I think it's a big Jalen Carter game. I've said that. The weakness of the Packers up front is the center and one of the two guards. You know, uh, uh, Josh Myers and Sean Ryan can be had. I think certainly Josh Myers. The key is Elgin Jenkins. He's a really good player. Zach Tom's a really good player. But right in the middle there, I think you can create some. And look, and I apologize because my voice is still crappy from my cold, by the way. So I appreciate people being patient with that. But when you talk about any quarterback, the easiest way to get to them is pressure up the middle, right in their face. And I think the Eagles have an opportunity to do that. And then Jordan Love's got a little Brett Favre in him. He's going to take some chances. So when you talk about a playmaker like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's hot and the turnovers are starting to come, there's going to be a couple overthrows, and maybe you need to make sure you're in a position to take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, and he spreads the football around. So, it might be Reed, it might be Kraft, it might be Dobbs, it might be Wicks.
Right.
Now they have Luke Musgrave back. They'll use the backs coming out of the backfield. He'll spread the football around. Might be Bo Melton stepping up. He will spread the football around. So big communication game, which has been a strength for the Eagles defense this year. And they need to keep it up.
No doubt about it. John, we're going to continue to break down this game. We got plenty of time to do that. We'll have some more guests throughout the week to break down the game. I do want to ask you a little bit about some of the NFL news, John, that came out yesterday. It was a Black Monday yesterday. Several coaches fired. Anything stick out to you, John, worth talking about here on Birds 365? Obviously, Gerard Mayo got let go in the first year. I'm not sure what you think of something like that, whether that was too quick, even though you listen to a Patriot fan and they're like, well, if you watch the Patriots, he was out coached all year. That doesn't mean I think he should have been fired, but your thoughts on any of the Black Monday firings?
You see it, I think, more with Cincinnati firing Lou Anamuro, who's a really good defensive coordinator. The 49ers fired their special teams coordinator. It's like, and I talk about it in Philadelphia all the time, and like coming off last year, everybody's got to have a scapegoat. If you don't reach your expectations, somebody's got to pay for it, even if you're keeping the head coach. And
in the case of the Jags, Trent Baalke skates free and lets Doug Peterson get the scapegoat.
Yeah. Well, that's a bizarre situation. But yeah, the Jags aren't the greatest organization in the world. And now we're in Kellen Moore got his first interview request. And people are going to lose their mind. We're in that stage of the offseason. Oh, he's got to focus on the Eagles. It happens every year. What is a surprise?
Right.
It's been this way forever. They actually tweaked the rules a little bit. Now he can't interview until after the Packers game. Obviously, if they lose, he could have interviewed anyway. But even if they win, he can interview after the Packers game if he wants to. Maybe he doesn't want to go to New Orleans.
Right.
So he could turn it down, but I doubt it. It's just part of the process, and I wouldn't lose sleep over that. Although I know, because I got so many quotes about it. I mean, yeah, every year it's the same thing. How can they let guys interview?
Well, I think you can say it's going to happen regardless of what people say. I think you can still dislike the process.
I think you can dislike the rule.
I think it's going to be a factor in the playoffs. I mean, look at the Lions. How many interviews are?
I was just about to bring them up. Everybody.
I mean, is that going to be a factor for them? I think it really could be a factor for the Lions, who are going to be dealing with probably every team that's interviewing, asking for both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect them one bit.
Maybe it's the bad taste in my mouth from the 2022 Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, these are human beings. They're not sitting 24/7 thinking about the next opponent. They go to work. They do their work. They go home. There's limitations. They have to interview virtually. There is opportunity. They might have to shovel snow. In Detroit, they might have to fix their damn heater, like in South Jersey. Everybody, they're human beings. This is another part of being a human being. And they're taking a job interview for a promotion, and they will give that their just due. The smart ones are already prepared. They already have it worked out. The legendary Andy Reid story of, his binders, and he had his whole coaching staff already, already put together. Ben Johnson has been going. He could have had a job last year. He certainly has all his ducks in a row. And if he doesn't, he shouldn't be a head coach. Yeah, it's one of the most overrated things ever. They will get their work done. Kellen Moore will get his work done for the Philadelphia Eagles if he decides to take the interview. And I think he will. I don't think he's going to get the job, but I think he'll take the interview, and it will not affect the Eagles at all.
Yeah. We will see what happens there. How about the Giants, John, bringing back Dable and Joe Shane? All that talk about all the Saquon stuff all year, and they're coming back. I think it's a good thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to call for people to be fired just because I think it's, I think the way that the league that does business is, as I said, you have to scapegoat somebody. Or in the case of the New York Giants, you don't. Now they'll fire a bunch of assistants and lower level people. So there will be scapegoats. But yeah, I mean, they haven't done a good job, So, but John Mara's crossed the bear. Giants fans crossed the bear. I think Eagles fans have. And to be honest, that's been this division for a long time. You talk about one of the strengths of the Eagles since they've gone on this run, really, as one of the best teams of this century. Don't underestimate the bad ownership in the NFC East. Giving them a leg up each and every year.
Yeah.
And that's changing a little bit in Washington. It's not going to change in New York. It's not going to change in Dallas. They have good businessmen, but Jerry Jones is going to get in the way. Yeah, it's been a big edge for the Eagles, and it looks like it's going to continue with the New York Giants.
Yep, no doubt about it. What did you think of that Gerard Mayo firing, John?
He shouldn't have been a head coach to begin with. It's like one of those things where you know what's coming. So you either really believe in the guy and let him live through the awful season, or you don't, and he's a one and done guy, and they don't, evidently it's going to be Mike Vrabel. That's what everybody thinks, who's a proven guy at this stage. And
yeah, the optics of it aren't good. I'm not saying Gerard Mayo was this great coach or anything, but if you're going to give a guy a job, commit to him. I mean, give him a chance, give him a moment, give him something. I didn't understand. I mean, why make him the coach if he's going to be gone after a year? I think that's, I don't know, that seems too quick for me.
Well, it is too quick if you believe in him. If you don't believe in him, you got to admit the mistake, and obviously they don't believe in him. But
did they ever believe in him? That's my question.
I don't know. It's hard to, it's hard to say. Jake Rosenberg, he used to work for the Eagles. People know if they watch this show, but he tweeted something yesterday I thought was interesting, and he said most NFL GM head coach hires are doomed from day one. Those hiring lack clarity in what skills, experience determines success in the role and don't understand experience and skills of candidates. The results is a prediction and a huge bet of money and time that someone can learn the other 90% of the job. The process can be so much better, and the league itself can do much more to develop and assess. And I agree with them. You know, they do a bad job.
Right.
Not another big advantage the Eagles have. They don't spend the time and the money to do the due diligence on all these candidates. And the Eagles are famous league wide for their long interview process, which has gone, 7-8 hours in the past, to the point the league had to change the rule and limit time you have with these candidates. Everybody's not like that. And they bet. Like Ben Johnson's a perfect example. Can he call plays? Obviously. Can he do 90% of the other job, which is bigger? I don't know. A lot of people say here, well, keep Kellen Moore. Not a lot, but a lot of people said, because you don't want to change the play caller again. You can't keep changing the play caller. I mean, people have now seen Kellen Moore for a whole season, and they see Nick Sirianni all the time. Does one feel like a better leader? I hate using this term, but I'm going to use this term. Leader of men.
Right.
Does one seem like a little bit better in that aspect? Because it seems like a slam dunk to me.
It's a slam dunk, John. You're correct.
You don't want a guy learning 90% of the other part of the job and only having 10% down, is what Jake was saying.
Who's the next Nick Sirianni / Dan Campbell? And people are going to say, why the hell you put them in the same sentence? Well, I actually think, John, that Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni have more similarities than people think. They have different styles. Yes, they're completely different
leaders. Yeah.
But they're both so passionate. They wear their emotions on their sleeve, whether good or bad. They stick to their guns, and I think their commitment to their team and at least the way they show that to their players is one of the biggest reasons that people love playing for them. I mean, I listened to the Jared Goff post-game interview on Sunday night. I mean, he almost was in tears when he just got asked about playing for Dan Campbell. What's it mean to play for this? He was literally almost brought to tears. And I'm like, that's a guy that's connected with his players, his professional players, in a deeper way. And I think Nick maybe doesn't get enough credit for that, but I think he does that as well. Maybe not with Jalen, because I think Jalen is just too stoic to ever show that type of emotion. But certainly seems like Eagle players love playing for him, and obviously the Detroit players love playing for Dan. Who's the next coach in the league that's going to be able to captivate a locker room like that?
If I could tell you that, I wouldn't be here. I'd be making a lot of money. But if I had to pick somebody,
I mean, what do you look for? What would you look for if it were you?
Leadership.
It's a hard thing to do.
Leadership. Like so much of, the cliche in the NFL is, if you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. And by the way, Kellen Moore is a perfect example of this. The Eagles didn't hire a scheme. He changed. And I think that's good coaching, to take advantage of what he had. So I think he's done a very good job coaching that offense. But if you're asking me to pick, and I've been saying this for years, since he left here and he retired finally, and the Houston Texans were going to make him the head coach straight off the field until they got too much blowback and they didn't have the courage to do it. Josh McCown. Everybody loves that guy. Everybody loves that guy. He played for 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
He's seen every scheme that's ever been devised. So he knows the football part of it. But the other part of it is, I'm telling you, people gravitate to him.
I was at the playoff game that he stepped in for Carson Wentz. That was the last playoff game I was at the link. Johnny Mack was.
In fact, I remember I advocated at the time the Eagles were going to interview him to be an assistant, like quality control, start him out. I advocated they make him quarterbacks coach right away, and maybe offensive coordinator.
Where is he now? I think he's with the team still, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the quarterback coach in Minnesota. He's getting an interview with the Jets.
There you go. Yeah.
To be the head coach. Now, when he did retire, the Texans interviewed him twice to be the head coach. And the first time they were going to hire him, and they just, how could you do that? How could you? He's got no experience, which is what I find amusing. Like 2 years of quality control experience and then going is more important than playing 18 fucking years in the league.
I know, it's so true.
So he's been on the fast track. He's been the quarterback's coach in Carolina and now Minnesota. He's already had head coaching interviews. If I had to bet on somebody, and I've been betting on him since he was here, it would be Josh McCown.
Good pick. I like that. I like that pick. Johnny Mac, we'll get to our first commercial break, and when we come back, we'll dive into some more of this Eagles-Packers playoff game. Wild card, everybody, get ready. It's now do or die. Do or die for the Philadelphia Eagles. We have a super chat we'll get to, and by the way, I will take more super chats later on in the show. We have no guest today, so we will go to some super chats from the great people. If you guys have any questions about the playoff game for J-Mac, make sure you get them in there. F Body Guy says, J-Mac, please ask Howie in the hallway to keep our coordinators so we can have consistency. It's been a problem. Pay these guys. I don't think it's about paying them, man. If they get a head coach, they're gone.
Yeah, it ain't about paying them. The Eagles, pay their coordinators.
Although I don't think Vic Fangio wants another head coach.
Vic doesn't want to leave. So you have part of the equation solved. And plus, there's a lot of ageism he's not going to get. There's not a better assistant coach in football, but he's 66 years old. So nobody wants him. So that's that wheelhouse where there's a little bit of luck involved. With Kellen, you can't keep him. If he gets a head coaching job, he's going to take a head coaching job. There could be the rare occasion when you have a Ben Johnson last year who, is in a perfect situation and says, I'll wait. I don't want to go to Carolina. I don't want to go to Washington, which was a mess at the time. But Kellen's not in that position. If he gets a job, he's pretty much got to take it. So you can't keep a guy who has ambition. And he wants to be a head coach, and he'll be a head coach eventually. But I don't get the feeling he's a hot candidate this time around. I wrote about this yesterday. To me, he's behind, obviously, Ben Johnson. He's behind, if you're talking about the offensive guys, Cliff Kingsbury is going to get a lot of buzz again. You start talking, Arthur Smith is getting interviews, which, my God, I don't get. Matt Nagy, you got the Andy Reid effect, rebuilding him. Bobby Slowick even. I don't get the feeling he's at the top of a lot of lists. So I think the Eagles are going to luck out. Now, plus there's only 5 openings. Now, if one of these teams doesn't get the guy they want, which will probably be Ben Johnson, and decide to wait, then if the Eagles have a run to the Super Bowl, well, that can change it really quickly.
Right.
But most of these teams want to act pretty quickly.
What's the best job this year? Like, what if you're Ben Johnson, where do you want to go?
That's a good question.
Well, there's not that. I'm telling you, I mean, I know there's only 32 of these jobs. They're all coveted in a way, but Ben Johnson was picky last year. I don't think he's going to be less picky this year.
I mean, he might want to work with Trevor Lawrence, but Then you have Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which that owner, John, I know you're friends with that family. I mean, good Lord. What is
yeah,
he doing? What the hell is he
yeah.
doing?
Chicago with Caleb Williams. Yeah,
Meh.
I think he's taking the job though. You can't wait forever. Certainly, if they win, I mean,
People are saying Raiders in the chat. Did Raiders let go of Pierce? I didn't see that. Did
not
they?
yet, not
Not
yet.
yet. Yeah. No,
Um,
they waited to, I guess they're gonna call it Black Tuesday now.
um, uh, Raiders have no quarterback though.
Yeah.
You know, I would say Jacksonville number one, Chicago number two, because
Well, maybe Ben would like the opportunity to pick a quarterback, no?
not this year.
Definitely not this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say Jacksonville number one, but you know, and that was the weirdest thing. Shad's like, well, if a new head coach wants me to fire the guy, I'll fire him.
I know.
Essentially,
That clip was hilarious.
which you know, Ben would certainly want him to fire him. So Trent would be out. And they would have to acquiesce to a lot of demands, but I think Jacksonville would be the number one because of Trevor Lawrence.
That's fair. BVC, good super chat, man. I'm going to get to that after the break because that's a good topic. I do want to talk a little bit about about Nick Sirianni. So good super chat there. We'll get to that after the break. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you, F Body guy, as well for the super chat. Big thanks to everybody watching this morning. Big Z's got a little different setup today. I'm trying to fix up the studio. I'm done with the green screens, John. I'm done with them. They drive me crazy. So I'm trying to build a studio. I'm not quite there yet, but I will eventually make it better as I want to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd like to get, but I don't have room for. I can't build a studio.
Yeah, this is a tough. The room I'm in, which is my studio, it's been my studio. It's where I worked forever, but it's got 3 huge windows. So when you're trying to build a studio, you want to control the light as best you can.
Yeah,
And that makes
that's
it
a problem. That's a problem.
That makes it hard to deal with. Yeah, you know that. You got the big window next to you too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to deal with all that, but I'll get it worked out. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. We appreciate you guys for all the support this week. Big playoff game, everybody. It's do or die now. Let's get to our first commercial break. Before I do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go and check them out now. You can see the promo code on your screen. That's YouTube 150. Gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit. So deposit less and bet with more. It's all up to $2,000. So go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa and use the promo code YouTube150. We appreciate that. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody.